Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing better. Why? Well, this week, I'm recording this in the last week of September. I've been off for like 4 days. I completely lost my voice. Like, it was gone. Like, there was nothing. Then I had this super low bassy voice, which was really weird. It sounded like a radio guy. And that kind of went away, thankfully. I'm kind of getting back to normal. You might hear a little difference. But anyways, I'm back. Thanks for your concern. I know this happened in the past. But anyways, it's here. I'm here. And I wanted to chat with you about something that I think we don't talk enough about. And in our podcasting world, we've seen some amazing podcasters who have left us and unexpectedly passed away. And don't want this to be a downer, but the idea that we should be planning for our future and we should be thinking about what we're going to do with our show if something ever happened to us. Who picks up the pieces? What are we leaving for our family? How is it going to be a good experience for them? Well, it's not, they're going to miss us, but are they going to be surrounded by a bunch of questions, or will it be all easily laid out for them? Passwords, what to do next, even like a final episode. What about our audience or community, all the people that we know and love? In a less dramatic context, being sick this last couple of days, I missed one of our meetup group meetings because I couldn't talk and I had a fever and I was just burning up. And to communicate with everybody was just a pain in the butt because it was hard trying to find emails when you're sick and blah, blah, blah. And just a pain to communicate. And throw on there losing someone and the stress and the anxiety and the hurt and the pain, all of that goes along with losing a loved one. And then having to pick up the pieces of their podcast and go, what do I do with this? It's interesting because this might be shocking for you, but my family doesn't really, my wife listens to my Living the Next Chapter podcast. She's very helpful in that podcast. She pre-listens to everything that I put out because I'm going to make a mistake and she catches them all and makes them sound better. So that's great. But for this show and my other shows, my kids and my family, they don't even really listen to podcasts and they have zero interest in what I do to continue this podcast and do all of that. So really, this is all on me to keep the show going. And when I'm not here, the show is over. That's just a reality. Nobody that I know in my family is remotely interested in the How to Podcast series. Nobody that I know is remotely interested in Dad Space or Living the Next Chapter or any of the 9 shows that I do. They're all just going to stop. But I need to do something now to make it easy for my family to know what to do with this podcast, with all my logins, all that information. Now, let's rewind a little bit. A little bit of my history. My great-grandfather, he was an engineer, not the ones that build things and design things, like the one that actually, was a train engineer and traveled the tracks up in northern Ontario. And his train, steam locomotive number 701, that last run on the Ontario North Railways tracks, the last run was June 1957. That was his train. And I moved to the town in Inglehart, Ontario, Canada. And if you want, I'll put a link in the show notes. You can go see the train. That was my great-grandfather's train. That was his locomotive that he drove all the time. That was his job. Locomotive engineers have, especially at that time, what was called a dead man switch. And a dead man switch is basically something that if an engineer took their foot off that switch or was not in proximity of that switch where them not being in contact with the switch would then cause the train to start slowing down and stop naturally over a period of time. So that switch is really important. It had to be engaged by an engineer to keep the train going. And dead man switch is just that kind of safety measure that helps to do something with the engine if something happens to the engineer. So the quickest way to stop a train back when the old Western days would be to take out the engineer, because their foot would come off the dead man switch and the train would stop. That's kind of how it works. So being that my grandfather was an engineer, I'm like, it's kind of a parallel over to podcasting, and we need our own version of a dead man switch. When something happens to us, what happens to our show? And how can we do this in a way that makes it easier for our family to deal with all the behind the scenes stuff? It's a lot to consider here. This is not meant to be an exhaustive 101 on everything you should do, but at least open your eyes to having a conversation with your family and say, listen, for my podcast, this little hobby thing, this small little business I'm building, this community that I've built, here's what I need you to do if something happens to me. So for your consideration, a dead man switch for podcasters, leaving instructions for your family, what do we need to do? Here we go. One of the things I've been thinking about is, how do we say goodbye to our audience? When I was recording this, just in the past few weeks, we lost Todd Cochran, who was a huge giant in podcasting. And he had no intentions of recording his last episode. He left us with a goodbye, see you next week, everyone. Goodbye, folks. That's how he kind of did his thing. He had no intention of missing his next episode. And he did his recordings live, and he loved interacting with his audience. But he just didn't show up for his next episode because he had passed away. And in that, there's a lot of questions for his family, for his community, for his sponsors. A lot of this stuff going on behind the scenes. We're like, we don't know what to do with this. And I'm just wondering your thoughts on, do we pre-record a goodbye episode and just have it sitting there with instructions for our family on how to release it, and just have it out there, and maybe just one day I'm not around and I have a pre-recorded episode to say thank you. And if you're hearing this episode, then I'm not here. Sounds morbid, I know, but how do you say goodbye to your family, your podcasting family, the people that you know and love and you've spent time with, people who have donated and supported your podcast, people who have listened to your show? Watching all the footage for Todd's funeral, it really sunk into me that we have our family, our blood relatives, and then we have a podcasting family. And even though our actual family probably has very little interactions with our podcast family, our relationships with our community of listeners truly matter. And there's an impact when we're gone. So let's think about some of the ways that we can leave well and help our family to not have to struggle in our absence. So like I said, for my family, they don't have any interest in this podcast and continuing the show. So I need to have some way to wrap this all up with a nice little bow, instead of just not showing up one day, like what happened with Todd. I know that he would have loved to have some sort of finale to an amazing career in podcasting, but that just wasn't in the cards for him. And we all thought Todd was bulletproof. Like, there's no way he's not going to show up. He's been here every week for years and years and years. So why would we not expect anything less? But life is life, and we don't know what we don't know. And Todd didn't know that his last episode was his last. And I'm sure he would love to come and give us a final goodbye and share his love for his audience. And that's just not going to happen. So as a podcaster, I think we should create some kind of system, documentation to ensure that our podcast, all of our assets, all of our obligations are properly handled if we, for some reason, unexpectedly pass away, or we're incapacitated to the point where we can't continue our show. And our family have to make judgment calls and decisions on our behalf because we're not able to do so on our own. And just like a dead train's dead man switch we talked about, which automatically stops the train if the operator becomes incapacitated, a podcast needs a dead man switch of its own, which can help safeguard your legacy as a creator and make things a lot easier for your family and your business partners to manage in the event of an emergency. I know that hearing about Todd's final days, he had some things in place, but some things weren't in place, and I'm sure he would love to have set it up in a way that would have made it easier for everybody, but I know that was never his intent, to make it difficult at all. So this train dead man switch analogy. On a train, again, the dead man switch ensures that safely brings the train to a stop when the operator is no longer present and no longer able to act. When we lose the engineer, the lives of the people on that train are at jeopardy because there's no one there to do anything, right? So we as podcasters need to have something set up as a clear emergency brake and instructions, access, next steps to pass along to our family in the event that we are no longer here. What to do with the show. And without this switch, everything can stop suddenly, leaving collaborators, sponsors, family, community in chaos. So some key steps for you to consider in building your own dead man switch for your podcast. Here's a couple things to think about. First, document your access to everything. Think about it. Document everything that you have access to. Make note of it and put it somewhere where everybody knows where that is for your family to access. List out all of your necessary passwords, your account logins, credit cards that are attached to each of the different things that you pay for on a monthly basis, yearly basis. Go through all your credit card statements, look back over the last year, 2 years, look at all the things that you've purchased, all of the things that you subscribe to, maybe you're donating to something off a credit card. Document everything that requires a login and put it into one shared place where your community has access to it and your family has access to it. So they can get onto the things that require an identification, what are the last 4 digits of the credit card number, all of these different things. We need to have something in place so that our family has access to get to make the decisions for us when we're not here. Website dashboards, social media logins, content libraries, banking services, all of this. We need to get all this information into some way for our family to have access to it. And I would suggest that if your family is not remotely interested in your podcast, that you make arrangements with a podcast buddy, that they will help assist your family who has zero idea of what a podcast is. You know what it is, and you would love to help be that in-between person for that family in that moment. If you and I have had that relationship over time, whether in person, virtually, meetups, been a guest on this show, and you're like, yeah, when I look at my family, I don't see anybody that has remote interest in my podcast. It might be time to think outside of your family. You make arrangements with a fellow podcaster to be your liaison between your family and the podcasting world to do all the things on behalf of you if you're not here. So consider reaching out to one of your podcast friends in the community and do it for each other. Be each other's designate if something ever happens to you and your show. It'll help the family so much because you already know how to do all this stuff. So consider that. Prepare instructions for your family or the person that's going to help with the transition of your show. Do that in advance. Document everything. Just as if you were handing this over to an intern, document everything. Think about your process. go through it, map it all out, and put this document somewhere with all your logins and all your information that your family members or your designate has access to, so that they can do your wishes after you're gone. Write up that step-by-step guide on explaining how your podcast works, how to access and edit your episodes, your RSS feed. That's really important. Your analytics, your sponsorships, any paid services, anybody who's expecting something from you. They've given you money to be advertised on your show, and they have a commitment they've paid you for. All of this stuff. There's a lot of things going on here. We need to specify who should be contacted in the industry and the status of any ongoing partnerships and any routine publishing duties around your podcast. Write it out. Document everything. Have a plan that you can just one file folder, one book, one thing that has everything in one. Document all your access, all your logins, and prepare instructions for what happens next with your show. The next thing is just to name a digital executor of your podcast. If you own a home, if you own a car, if you have any assets, your family are going to gather at a lawyer's office after you're gone, and there's going to be a whole process where they read the will and they divide up all the things, and everything that's to be paid has to be paid. Everything that's available after will be divided up based on your wishes. Same for your podcast. This is your digital footprint. It's just as important as your physical footprint in the sand. Your digital footprint also matters. So have a digital executor for what you do. Designate someone who's a trusted contact and have them actually in your legal documents, giving them permission and acknowledging them to manage your podcast after you're gone. This person should understand your wishes and have both the legal and digital rights to act on your behalf. That's, again, if you don't have anyone in your family who has any interest in your show, then this should be your path. If your family shows interest in your podcast, your partner, your spouse, your kids, they're like, oh yeah, mom, dad, we got you. We're going to take care of this. Then you need to have that in your will. Like, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm telling you, you need to have something in place. A side conversation in the hallway is not the same as something written down and documented through proper legal process. So just keep that in mind. Name a digital executor for your podcast and create a content release policy for your family after you're gone. Leave guidance on what to do with your unpublished episodes. You've recorded a bunch of interviews in the past and you haven't released them yet. Your guests are waiting for them. There's an obligation. What do you do with those episodes? They're not even edited. They're not even done. But your guest is like, well, what happens to my episode? I gave my time to be on the show, and what happens next, right? All of that needs to be addressed as well. Leave guidance on what to do with these unpublished episodes, your archive of everything you've ever done, all of your intellectual property, whether you retire the show, transition it, or you just make past content available permanently. You need to come up with a plan on your content release after you're gone. And communicate with all of your stakeholders so they know your wishes well in advance. Let your sponsors, partners, co-hosts know your plan in advance. If applicable, regularly update your family or your legal team about your intentions or any new or big changes, what you do, new sponsorships, new agreements. Make sure that's all captured in your wishes and a clear point of contact for emergencies. It could be something simple. It could be just temporary. But someone is available to answer the question, take the next steps on your behalf if something happens to you. There's legal and ethical considerations also to consider. And again, I'm not a lawyer. Please contact the lawyer where you live, in your community, in your state, province, country, all of that. They're going to have the best information for you. Podcasting isn't as common as real estate, so you might get some interesting looks from a lawyer across the table going, we're going to have to do some research on this. But ask the question, pose it to your lawyer in advance. But include your podcast in your will. You're like, Dave, but this is just a hobby podcast. Well, yeah. Well, I'm saying you should consider this as your legacy. And you want to know that your legacy lives on, right? You want your voice to be heard. You want your content to live on after you're gone. So include it in your will. If it's that important to you, then you need to acknowledge it in your will. Treat your podcast as an asset and specify its fate in your estate planning. Clearly outline rights, royalties, revenue sharing if your podcast survives you and continues to generate income after you're gone. And stay updated. Update access lists to instructions regularly as platforms and passwords change, and also reconfirm with your digital executor about your wishes and any updates as well. Some final thoughts around a dead man switch for your podcast. Take these steps as a dead man switch for your podcast and minimize the emotional burden and confusion for your loved ones by ensuring that professional obligations and creative work are respected and preserved. For you as a podcaster, my question to you then is this. The moment you pass away, your podcast will continue to live as long as your credit card survives. If your family cancels your credit cards, which are linked to your hosting site, to all of the paid things that you pay for, the moment that credit card is broken and no longer valid, your podcast as a paid podcast is subject to just going away. Like not the newest episode, but all of the episodes could just simply stop. So what do you do? How do you keep your podcast alive after you're gone? Now, I'm recording this in September of 2025. So whenever you're listening to this, there could be new platforms, new options, new alternatives. Some of these options that I'm talking about right now may not even exist. So get information from those around you. But for me, how I'm kind of doing this is I've connected my podcast to YouTube so that every time I release an episode, it gets put onto YouTube automatically without me having to touch it. Why? Because I want people to find me on YouTube. When they found me and then go listen to me on other apps. Great. But it's also a backup storage drive of all of my episodes. And as long as YouTube allows it to be connected and serves it to the world via YouTube, great. Do I owe anything to YouTube? No, they could just delete my stuff anytime they want. So it's not a foolproof method, but it works right now to have a backup of all of my episodes for free on YouTube by connecting my podcast through my RSS feed, really simple syndication, RSS feed. By connecting those two to YouTube into my RSS feed, I get free backup of all of my episodes in perpetuity into the future, so it's there. That's one thing. A free host is free, and I know there are people who don't like this thought, but Spotify for Creators, it is free. So this show, the How to Podcast series, is on Spotify for Creators. I do not pay at this time at all to be hosted on this site. So everything you see on Spotify for Creators, because it's free, is still there. Again, Spotify could decide they don't like me and they could just delete everything. That's their platform. I can't really argue when I'm not paying for it. But technically, this show will live on for me, even if I'm not here, because I'm not paying. The moment my Captivate.fm hosting site and Buzzsprout don't get the money for the monthly fees that come off automatically because my credit card doesn't work anymore because Dave's not here, then my show could just stop being served and could completely be removed from all of the podcast player apps because I'm not paying anymore. And that's fair. I'm not paying for that. So some apps will allow you to do a $5 a month plan or something, which is kind of an archive of your show. But even then, if you stop paying the $5 a month, they'll just stop serving your show. They have no allegiance to you at all when your credit card runs out of space or is deleted or inactive. They don't owe you anything. And that's the downside of paid hosting, is it's paid. And if you don't pay, you're not hosted. So if you want your show and your voice to remain out in the podcast world, YouTube is a good start. A free hosting site like Spotify for Creators, or whatever they call it in the future, is an option. But other than that, you're at the mercy of your wishes that you outline for your family or your community. My hope for you is that if you've been doing podcasting for a while, that you consider recording a goodbye episode. It doesn't have to be morbid. It can be light. But just say, thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for supporting me for all these years. Thank you for pressing play. I'm not able to record into the future, and I appreciate everyone for being here. There's a lot of great content here. Go back and listen. And then also realize that your family has the joy, even if they don't understand podcasting, that they have the joy of going back and hearing your voice anytime they want, as you babble on about the things that you love, which make them roll their eyes. They still have that peace that they get to hear your voice anytime they want. And that can be a lot of comfort for people missing their family. So make your podcast live on, get the instructions, get all the information to set things up for your family in a good way. And start thinking about this now. Even with 5-10 episodes for your show, you're brand new. Document. Tell your family your wishes. We never know what's going to happen. Todd Cochran had no idea what was going to happen. We miss him deeply. Don't let this happen to you. Don't let your goodbye episode happen without your knowledge. Plan for it, prepare for it, make it easier for your family and your community to miss you and to honor you with your wishes for your show. So we know what you want done with your amazing podcast. And your community can celebrate you and the amazing show that you've created over hundreds of episodes and years and years and years of being this great companion. Your audience, your community can celebrate you along with your family. It's a beautiful thing that we have this as podcasters. So do the work behind the scenes and leave instructions for your family and prepare that deadman switch as a podcaster for when life throws you something unexpected. A little bonus, if you're looking for a book that goes along with this, that can give you some help and some more thoughts on what to do after you're gone, go over to Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's called I'm Dead. Now What? Planner. Important information about my belongings, business affairs, and so on. And it's there for you. It's a bestseller on Amazon. So go grab that. There's another one, Sorry, It's Your Problem Now. There's a bunch of different books. So go grab one of these. These will be a great starting point for you. But yeah, grab it and fill it all out. Do this. Don't delay. Because again, we want to make it super easy for our family. Thank you for being here. I hope this podcast finds you well. I hope that you don't need this episode anytime soon. And you keep showing up for your audience. And thank you so much for being here. And if you want to see my great-grandfather's train, go check out the link. You'll see my great-grandfather's train. Pretty cool. Thanks for being here, everybody. Take care. Hey, thanks for being here. Thank you for listening to the end of the podcast. You're here with me. I'm so grateful. I want to put something in front of you. For the person that's listened this far, you're my new best friend. So what I'm trying to do every month is I have a goal, and you can help me with this goal. Very simple. What I'm trying to do is have 5 conversations this month with listeners of the How to Podcast series. You don't have to have a podcast to respond. This can be the first time ever that we're going to have a conversation, but I'm looking to talk to 5 people. Now, you're still here, so you're one of the people that I would love to talk to next. So on my howtopodcast.ca website is a calendar, and I'd love to have you respond on howtopodcast.ca. Just click the calendar link, set up time in my calendar, and in the comments section for the meeting, just put something like listener. That's it. If you have a show, put it in the comments too so I can go listen. But if you don't, I just want to talk to 5 listeners every month from now to the end of the month. So if you're listening to me right now, you're the person I want to talk to. And through howtopodcast.ca, you and I can get together, chat about the show, chat about your journey as a podcaster. Where are you at? What do you need this show to become for you? What's missing? Your feedback. I just want to meet you. And as podcasters, I would encourage you to do something similar to this in your podcast so that you can meet and interact with your audience. So, howtopodcast.ca, I'm looking to talk to 5 people every month, and I would love for you to be one of them. Reach out. It's free. I'm not selling you anything. I just want to talk to you at howtopodcast.ca. Let's get in the calendar and chat. Thanks for listening.